A seismic shift has just occurred in the heart of British foreign policy. In a move that has been debated and deferred for generations, the United Kingdom has formally recognized the state of Palestine. This wasn't a solitary act, but a coordinated declaration with Commonwealth allies, Canada and Australia, sending a powerful, unified message across the globe. The decision represents the most significant departure from Britain's Middle East policy in over half a century, a policy intrinsically linked to the very origins of the conflict itself. The aftershocks were immediate, sparking a diplomatic firestorm. The move has been hailed as courageous and just by its supporters, whilst its detractors have condemned it as a reckless and dangerous appeasement. In this detailed examination, we will unpack the anatomy of this historic decision. Why has this government, led by Prime Minister Keir Starmer, succeeded where so many before have failed, or feared to tread? We will analyze the furious reaction both at home and abroad, and explore what this recognition truly means, in practical terms, for the future of the world's most intractable conflict. Did you know that over 95% of our viewers aren't subscribed to the channel? We totally get it. Life gets busy and sometimes it's easy to forget. But here's the thing. Subscribing is completely free and it really helps us keep creating the content you enjoy. So why not hit that subscribe button and join our community? It only takes a second, but it makes a world of difference to us. Thank you for your support. The announcement itself was delivered with calculated precision. The Foreign Secretary, speaking before the House of Commons, stated that the United Kingdom now officially recognizes a sovereign and independent Palestinian state based on the pre-1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as its capital. The government was quick to frame the decision not as an act against Israel, but as a necessary measure to salvage the dying embers of the two-state solution. The official line from Downing Street is that decades of waiting for a negotiated settlement to deliver recognition have failed. The relentless expansion of illegal settlements and the absence of a viable political horizon, they argue, have made inaction untenable. This move, therefore, is presented as a catalyst, an attempt to rebalance the scales and create new parameters for future peace talks, rather than being the end result of them. The coordination with Ottawa and Canberra was crucial, designed to portray this not as a maverick move, but as the new, considered position of a significant bloc of Western middle powers. To truly grasp the magnitude of this moment, one must journey back over a century to when Britain's hand first shaped the region's destiny. The Balfour Declaration of 1917, a short letter from the then Foreign Secretary, was the document that first committed Britain to supporting the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. This set in motion a chain of events that defined the 20th century. During the British Mandate, which followed, London struggled to manage the conflicting aspirations of Arabs and Jews, a struggle that culminated in violence, revolt, and ultimately Britain's chaotic withdrawal in 1948, leaving the conflict to explode into open war. For the 76 years that followed, British policy has been one of strategic ambiguity. Successive governments, both Labour and Conservative, endorsed a two-state solution in principle, but maintained that the UK would only recognize a Palestinian state as part of a final, comprehensive peace agreement agreed upon by both parties. This policy was seen as the only way to maintain leverage and avoid being seen as prejudging the outcome of negotiations. So what changed? The current Labour government has clearly calculated that the old formula is broken beyond repair. They argue that the very concept of a negotiated settlement has been used as a means to indefinitely delay Palestinian statehood, whilst the reality on the ground changes irrevocably. This decision, therefore, is a fundamental rejection of that long-standing policy, a high-stakes gamble that a new approach is urgently required. Inside the UK, the political fallout has been swift and severe, exposing the deep divisions in British society on this issue. In Parliament, the Prime Minister defended the move as a moral and strategic imperative. He positioned it as Britain stepping up to its historic responsibilities, championing international law and correcting a historic imbalance. He insisted that the security of Israel remains paramount to his government, but argued true security can only be guaranteed by the dignity and sovereignty of a viable Palestinian state next door. The conservative opposition reacted with incandescent fury. The shadow foreign secretary labeled the decision a monumental folly and a capitulation to extremists. The core of the Tory argument is that this recognition rewards intransigence, bypasses the need for direct negotiations, and grants statehood to a political entity that does not have full control over its territory or a monopoly on the use of force. They contend it sends a dangerous signal to the world that objectives can be achieved through international pressure and violence, rather than through painful compromise at the negotiating table. This political schism is reflected in the nation's media. Left-leaning papers like The Guardian and The Independent have lauded the government's courage, whilst right-leaning titles like The Telegraph and The Daily Mail have published editorials warning of dire consequences for Britain's standing and for regional stability. Advocacy groups have mobilized, with the Palestine Solidarity Campaign celebrating a hard-won victory, whilst organizations like the Conservative Friends of Israel have condemned what they see as a betrayal. Internationally, the reactions have been just as polarized. For the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah, it was a moment of profound vindication, a diplomatic triumph that lends immense symbolic and legal weight to their long quest for statehood. For Israel, it was a stab in the back. The government immediately recalled its ambassador from London for urgent consultations and condemned the UK for giving a tailwind to terror. The United States, Britain's closest and most powerful ally, expressed its deep disappointment. The White House reiterated its long-held position that statehood must not be imposed unilaterally, but should emerge from direct talks. This creates a significant and uncomfortable rift in the so-called special relationship. The decision also highlights the deep fractures within Europe. Whilst Spain, Ireland, and Norway, who had already recognized Palestine, applauded the move, other key European powers like Germany and Italy have remained silent or expressed reservations, underscoring the lack of a unified EU position. Beyond the headlines and the high-level diplomacy, what does this recognition actually change on the ground? Symbolically, it is immense. It upgrades the diplomatic status of the Palestinian mission in London to a full embassy. It allows the UK to vote in favor of Palestinian membership in international bodies. Legally, it could strengthen the Palestinian position in international courts. However, in the immediate practical sense, it does not remove a single checkpoint in the West Bank or lift the blockade on Gaza. The true test of this policy will be what happens next. Will London, Ottawa, and Canberra now use their new position to apply meaningful pressure, linking trade and diplomatic relations to tangible steps towards ending the occupation? Or will this remain a purely symbolic gesture, a declaration that changes titles and flags, but not the harsh reality of daily life for Palestinians? The British government has taken a monumental gamble. It has shattered a decades-old consensus, alienated its closest allies, and staked its diplomatic capital on the belief that this act can shock the moribund peace process back to life. The coming months will reveal whether this was a masterstroke of preventative diplomacy or a naive miscalculation that will only pour more fuel on an already raging fire. Britain has irrevocably picked a side in the process, a decision whose consequences will undoubtedly shape the future of the Middle East and Britain's role within it for years to come. The central question remains unanswered. Is this the beginning of a new path towards peace, or simply the beginning of a new, more complicated chapter of the conflict? The British government has taken a monumental gamble. It has shattered a decades-old consensus, alienated its closest allies, and staked its diplomatic capital on the belief that this act can shock the moribund peace process back to life. The coming months will reveal whether this was a masterstroke of preventative diplomacy or a naive miscalculation that will only pour more fuel on an already raging fire. Britain has irrevocably picked a side in the process, a decision whose consequences will undoubtedly shape the future of the Middle East and Britain's role within it for years to come. The central question remains unanswered. Is this the beginning of a new path towards peace, or simply the beginning of a new, more complicated chapter of the conflict? So now we turn the question to you. Was the UK's decision a courageous and